I was working on setting up the LED ring on the cooler that came with my Ryzen 1700 processor to get the RGB set up and working from my motherboard control, and I found that you don't actually have to use the cable that came with the shroud in order to get the RGB working. So I started out doing it the way you're supposed to. I've got the cable here. It goes from the side of the shroud down to a pin header on the motherboard. And this just follows standard RGB LED strip conventions. You can plug it into any RGB LED strip header, but my motherboard has an error where it keeps pulsing everything to white no matter what you set it. So I realized that when the cooler came out of the box, it was just pure red, and now as you can see it's off. So how did AMD do that? Well, I got to looking at a rubber plug that comes in the side of the cooler, and you see it here. I thought initially that it was just to protect the pins in shipping, but if you look closer, and you probably can't see that because it's pretty blurry, but there's a little metal piece in it which shorts two of the pins together. And so I got out my meter and I did some testing, and this is what I found. Let's get the camera down so you can see the actual connector on the side of the CPU. There you go, focus on that. And you can see that there's 5 pins in there. Now, 2 of them are shorted together by that rubber plug. They're actually the 2 over on, excuse the cable there, they're actually the 2 over on the right hand side. And I've got my meter cable set up right now so I can short any of these pins to ground. So you see if I touch this, it turns blue. If I touch this one, green. And if I touch this one, red. So it's as simple as taking any of the 3 center pins and shorting them to ground, and you can have any color or combination of colors that you want. I also did some testing with a resistor. Let me plug in. I'll give you the complete pinout in a moment here. So plug that into the ground pin on this header, then take the resistor, touch it to those, and you'll see that they illuminate. It's a little bit harder to touch with this thin resistor. You can see that they illuminate at a partial brightness, and this is using, I believe, a 390 ohm resistor, and I'd say that'd be a pretty good brightness for a dark room. So that'll give you a starting point for the resistor to use. Now let me bring it out again here. I've got a card where I wrote down the pinout as I found it, and let's get the brightness adjusted again if possible. There we go. So now you can read the text. So this is reading from left to right when looking at the connector on the fan shroud in the orientation we were looking at it from. That is, looking at the top of the top and front of the fan shroud. So on the far left, you've got 12 volts power, then blue, green, and red, and then a ground pin on the far right. And I would caution you, as you're poking around on here, try not to short out that 12 volt pin on the left. Other than that, just go ahead and tie anything to ground and you should be able to get any color that you want. I did about a half hour of searching trying to find the actual connector that goes into here, and I couldn't match it up on the internet. So if anyone's an expert on headers, that would be much appreciated. I'd like to be able to find a pre-built header that I can then solder LED or resistors onto to get a custom color, but until then I'll probably just put a jumper between 2 of the pins and have a single color. Hopefully that helps someone. Good night.